Hey everybody, and welcome to our weekly challenge live broadcast where you get the opportunity to ask me questions not only now here live but during the week. And just as a reminder, you can see there, if you've got any questions at all, you can just drop by at live.eddale.co and leave a question at any time so I can answer them for you when I am on the live stream. I hope you are all well. I hope you enjoyed my legendary gaming introduction there, where I just typical of any particular Overwatch session, where I would get player of the game. Just happens a lot, but just picked one at random, that you thought you might be interested in. But unbelievably, I suspect you are probably here more interested in the actual information about building a business and marketing your business and getting traffic and understanding your market's pains, gains, and jobs to be done, stuff that you're doing with the challenge and stuff that you're doing trying to get ahead, than watching me play Overwatch. So to that end, we better get cracking, and we got some great questions this week. Now, just before I mention that, I do want to say that we've got access to the challenge right now. The challenge is absolutely live. You can see it at challenge.co, and at any time you are able to take the challenge, and it's the best way I know how of getting started in a business or an online business. It's just a really, really good stuff. So challenge.co is where you need to go for that, and you'll be able to, it's completely free, and it's really the best way we know how of getting started online. Okay, so with that, let's keep getting on here, and let's take our first couple of questions for the week here. Andrew Finkelstein asks, what portable digital recorder are you using that works with drag and dictate? Thank you. Now, let me give you some context for this question. Over on my blog a week ago, I put up a new article about how to write when you don't like writing. Because for a lot of entrepreneurs, approximately 65-70% of entrepreneurs are the style of entrepreneur where writing is not natural to them. You may be good at it, but you really, really have to force yourself to do it. As opposed to, for somebody like me, for example, where speaking here to you is something that comes quite naturally. I still get a little bit nervous, but it's fine. I'm happy to just talk and chat to you guys and answer your questions. So what I wanted to do, and it was a way of sort of putting together all of the stuff that I teach in one sort of blog post. So I encourage you to go to eddale.co/blog, and one of those key tricks with about this in this particular blog post is that I use a dictaphone. Right, it's just one of the elements of that. Now, the one I've got it right here. The one that that I use, and look, honestly, this is over the top for what you need. I use the Philips here. I think it's the 600 series, but honestly, I paid way too much. This is the fancy pants end of the spectrum. But I use it all the time. That's how I part of the process of tricking myself into writing articles. Because with drag and dictate, which a few of you may have tried dictating to your computer or one of those computer dictation programs, and it was probably a pretty horrible experience, right? Well, it's worth having a look at them again, because the technology and the ability to translate your words into the words that you actually said, like the success of that is just increasing all the time. And with a little bit of training and a little bit of effort, it is extraordinary. To give you an idea, it's the difference between, like, if I do a 25-minute writing session, if I'm not dictating, if I have to type, because I'm not a touch typist, most of us out there, certainly my age and above, are not touch typists. I actually said in this article, it was very interesting. One of the key elements of the pro bloggers, the really successful bloggers out there, I did this survey once. It's a couple of years old now, but it still holds up. That the slowest that a daily professional blogger type, successful one I'm talking about, successful one, been in the game for years, types is about 60 words touch typing a minute. I can't even do close to that. If I'm lucky, I can type 500, 550, maybe 600 words in 30 minutes if I'm really, really lucky. Okay? Now, compare that to the actual article that I did. I dictated 2,225 words in 25 minutes. So it's an extraordinary productivity difference. And I'm much more comfortable doing it because I don't have to think about it, right? I don't have to think, oh, where should I be placing my fingers? Because typing doesn't come naturally to me. So if that sounds like you, giving dictation a try and having a look at all the techniques in that blog post that I put together will be well worth your time and having a look at, because it can be you start pumping out the 25, 2,500 words a day. Well, to write a 50,000 word novel in 30 days, you only have to do 1,667 words a day. So it's, as I say, it's part of a larger article, and I think you might find it really, really interesting. But that's what I use. I use the Philips Dragon. If you go to the Nuance site, they recommend some voice recorders that you can use, because one of the other tricks of dictation is the biggest mistake people make when they dictate is looking at the screen, watching what is being dictated. That's bad news. Whereas I can take my recorder and I literally pace up and down here in the office, get a little bit of exercise, get some points on my watch, and it's just a much better way. I think better on my feet. Most people think better on their feet. Again, another interesting bit of science there. So hope that you appreciate that, Andrew. And let's take our next question. So Luke asks, what's the best way to monetize YouTube? Well, the straight off the cuff answer to monetizing YouTube is you have to build a list from your YouTube channel. You have to get people's emails. Now, is that the way the majority of the pro YouTubers are making money? No, it's not. Tragically, it's not. They make money from advertising, views. If you can create a video which gets 1 million views, YouTube will send you a check for 10 grand. It's sort of how it works. Now you think, oh, that's pretty good. But actually, that's terrible numbers. Like from an ad and economics perspective, YouTube are getting that exposure for pennies. It's really quite ridiculous. However, a lot of people do that. They just get views and they place ads on. The far smarter and the number one way people are making money on their YouTube channels right now is what we call native advertising. You might have heard of it in movies as product placement. Okay, so if you pick up this particular glass and say, I love this delicious water, or even better, although it's finished now, sadly, my Nespresso. If I'm having my Nespresso coffee cup and you can see my little Nespresso machine over here on the background, and I mention how I'm changing my life with Nespresso, and it's just a fantastic thing to have here in the office because I can have a really perfect espresso every time, even though hipsters would make me, I'd seriously have to hand in my coffee drinkers card here in Melbourne if I admitted to having Nespresso. Anyway, the point is, while I'm talking about that, advertisers, now, just to be clear, Nespresso didn't pay me, although, hey, anybody from Nespresso call me, let's do a deal. But that is actually how most YouTubers are making really decent money, because people who have products to sell realize that the relationship you have with your audience, and you've got to treat this relationship very, very importantly. If you build up that level of respect in an authority in your audience, then native advertising is probably the number one way of making money with a YouTube channel. My preferred approach, what we do, is that you use the YouTube channel as a way to build your list, to grow your audience. So we very rarely use our YouTube channel for direct promotion. Not that I haven't got anything against that. And I happily put up launch videos on my YouTube channel. I don't have a problem with that. But as a general rule, It's for being part of that, contributing back to your market. Remember what focus 2, we talked a couple of weeks away about the 6 key business focuses. And focus number 2 is providing value to your tribe. It's a key job. And I see the YouTube channel as being fantastic there. And then using that YouTube channel to point people to things that are going to be valuable for them to be able to then build the list, create the funnel, build the list. So there's sort of my 3 ways of doing it. There are other ways too. Another way, which is really, really interesting, a lot of the gamers are using this, and I think you're going to see this start to spread, is they're using things like Patreon. So what's Patreon, I hear you say? Well, Patreon is a way of people effectively subscribing to your stream. It's not handled through YouTube, but it's handled by the site called Patreon. And a lot of podcasts and YouTubers are actually sustaining themselves. They've built up $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 in subscriptions from people just becoming patrons. $1 a month, $2 a month, $5 a month, $10 a month patrons for their particular channel. And even donations they're using to build money. Now, I haven't seen anybody making super mega money on that, but boy, if you're making $2,000 or $3,000 as part of your YouTube channel, you're certainly covering your costs. And when you look at some of the things that are coming down the pipe with regards to broadcasting and all of those sorts of things, that money is really useful. So that's another way I think that people are sort of making advantage of all of that. So that's there's some of my suggestions in terms of YouTube monetization. Actually, this is a great segue. Gary asks, the Apple TV program that you're beta testing, is it still open? It's not at the moment, although if you did want to participate, you could send me an email and I can point you in the direction to have a look at the thing. Now, before you start sending me emails, understand that there's part of this is building you a whole custom program. So it's a $10,000 commitment. So it's not for everybody, but for people who who are doing a lot of live broadcasting, it's amazing. Anyway, I'm not going to pitch it here, but the point is, shoot us an email to eddale@mac.com if you're interested, and I'll point you in the direction of something you can watch and see if it's for you, because I don't want to waste anybody's time with that. Far more interesting to all of you lot, though, is that actually, hopefully this week, maybe next week, but hopefully this week, when we do this next time, you will be able to watch this broadcast from the comfort of your own lounge room through our new Apple TV app. Again, I'll announce and I'll send you emails and all this stuff so you can get yourself all prepared and set up. But it's something that we're working on, because there's no question, if you look at the way the world is moving, video content and reaching your audience via video is becoming a big deal. There's a reason Facebook are putting so much focus on this. There's a reason for it. They're not silly. They understand the engagement that happens when people are doing video. And it's particularly fascinating, I think. Obviously we see the YouTubers and their cooking and gaming and all of those sorts of things. But I'm interested when people start creating YouTube channels on pottery valuation or on Dog Parks of America reviews, or I think it starts to get really, really super interesting when we start utilizing all of these strategies in niches and markets that aren't used to them, because often introducing these sorts of innovations is a great way to get your foot into a market where there are a lot of existing old players because they're not used to the medium. So that's a really exciting approach. And so if video is your thing, and like I said, I know right now there's 30% of you who would really rather slam an appendage of their body in a car door rather than do what I'm doing here, being on video. That's just not your cup of tea. That's cool. Writing is probably way more your cup of tea, and that's cool too, right? And there's some people who are in between, need preparation or whatever it is. That's fine. The great thing about where we live now and building up an audience and serving a tribe in this day and age is that we can pick our medium that we're comfortable with, and we'll find an audience. There's what's Dale's law? Every market is a market. You don't have to decide that anymore. 10 years ago, sure, you needed to test if your market was actually online. Now we know, of course, that every market is a market. So YouTube is a brilliant channel. Podcasting is a brilliant channel. They've all got their tricks. They've all got their tips. YouTube is a wonderful channel. I'm sure Facebook and Facebook Live, your own apps are going to be super important. All of these things, all these mix, all it means is that we've got many, many paths to reaching and serving our tribe. And that's exciting, I think, because it really does include everybody. In the old days, if you didn't have a book out, and you could only publish a book if you got a deal with one of the major 6 publishers. Well, they were 6. I think they're down to about 3 now. But that used to be the way it worked. Or you have somehow fluked a radio show or a TV show. Now there's so many other ways to do that, including your own live broadcast here. It's crazy when you think about it. James says, "Hey Ed, I'm 16. Welcome. That's awesome. I have long-term plans to build my personal brand, and I'll start on that right away. I wish I'd known all this stuff when I was 16. But I need to start making $1,000 a month. I wasn't making $1,000 a month when I was 16. Short-term to help me in that long-term endeavor. How can I do that? Thanks." This is a excellent question because a lot of people ask this. Not necessarily making $1,000 a month at 16. Seriously, geez. Pocket money's gone up. I hope Hannah's not watching this. But what would I do? Okay, here's the challenge. And unfortunately, some of the things I would suggest, probably out of just age-wise, there's a couple of issues for you. But here's the first piece of advice is paid to train. Okay, rather than just going and getting any old job, get a job that is in the area. So maybe you help people with their social media posts. Maybe you create content. Maybe you help optimize their SEO articles. Maybe you help them do social media, stuff that you're probably really, really good at naturally right now, and get paid to do that. So yeah, you're working for somebody else, but you're building up your skills and you're seeing how it's working. And that, to me, is a great way. Offer your services on Fiverr. Nobody cares whether you're 16 or 60 or 98 on Fiverr, as long as you get the job done. I'm pretty sure they don't list your age along with, whatever you, at the end of the day, I don't care whether somebody's 12 or, 80 that designs my logo, as long as it's the one I like, great. So, maybe think about what are your skills and use that paid to train mentality. I've got to say, just this morning I used an Uber because we've gotten rid of our second car because fortunately we live relatively central, a few kilometres out from Melbourne, the CBD. And so we don't need a second car anymore. We just use FlexiCar, which is sort of like an hourly rental thing, or Uber. And it works out way cheaper than renting a second car. Anyway, point being that I was talking to the Uber driver and, they were driving Uber and they were building up, they were looking around, they were researching markets to decide because they wanted to get into business for themselves. And I thought, what a brilliant idea, because the great thing about Uber, and it was really interesting because this guy had never heard a podcast before. And I said to him, mate, when we haven't got a passenger, you should be listening to podcasts in the niche that you're going into. Because there's a bunch of podcasts. So I got him to download Pocket Casts and showed him how to use it. And so, Uber and those type of businesses are fantastic because here's the thing, and he said to me, it was like, he could, sure, it's not paid to train, but you are sort of trained because of the flexibility. You can do it at night, you can do it during the day. It's amazing actually how many people who've come to live webinars over the last couple of years who are doing Uber driving or the equivalent, something similar, during the day just to augment income. There's nothing wrong with that because here's the deal, right? Here's the thing that's important. And it's that classic, probably the one bit of psychology we all did at school was talking about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You remember that, sort of pyramid? And, right at the bottom base of that pyramid is sort of, a roof over your head and food. And all your, the needs for you to sustain life are set. Here's the deal. Any of that stuff that's above that, which includes, by the way, starting trying to run a business, trying to build a tribe, if you don't have that base level sorted out, you're never going to crack everything that's going above it. And that's why I think, driving an Uber or something like that is a brilliant idea, because you can decide when you work and when you don't work. It's sensational. And you can better yourself while you're driving around. You can be listening to podcasts. You can be, bettering yourself as you're going through. For goodness sake, the number of university courses that are now available for you to look at, and stuff like what I'm doing here. All of that is an opportunity. So for me, that is a great way to look at that. So hopefully I've given you an idea. Of course, the Uber driving is probably out for you, depending on where you're from, because I don't think 16-year-olds can drive an Uber. But the other paid for train stuff, right up your alley. Become a contractor on Fiverr, on Upwork, on all of those things. You've got some great questions today. Reed asks, I love this, because it shows a real awareness of his business. Check this out. I have a shop that repairs high-end cars. What kind of content would you produce? And now listen to this. If your best customers could care less about car content, and people that actually cared about content involving high-end cars were your worst customers. Now, I completely get this. I absolutely, completely understand this. So the type of customers are the rich people that love having a particular type of car as a collector's item, but they aren't into the maintenance of it. They don't care about it. They just love driving and being seen in that particular vehicle. Now, don't hate, don't judge. Bless them if that's the market they're in. But as a business owner servicing these high-end cars, of course, the people who are into the nitty-gritty of doing these cars and are super passionate about it can quite often be incredibly super picky about it, right? And that is, I get that. So what you have to do, so what do? Put my marketing hat on. What you have to do is you have to look at the pains, gains, and jobs to be done of the type of customer that you want. Question I'll often ask my private clients: who's your favorite client? Talk to me, describe your favorite customer. Put them in your head and describe them to me. Who are they? What type of business do they have? What's their income? What are their hobbies? Just to try to get a really rounded idea of who the type of this best customer is. Some of the highfalutin marketing books might refer to this as your customer avatar. There's another way you might have heard the term avatar as a way of describing this. I'm a simple bloke, so just tell me your best customer and what do they like. So that's the first thing I would be doing, Reed, is starting to think about that and what are their pains, gains, and jobs to be done. Typically, in that type of marketplace, word of mouth is so incredibly powerful. So if you divide up the transaction into 3 units, your before unit, your during unit, and your after unit, a lot of times we focus a lot on the stuff that we're doing the before unit, and Dean Jackson's a magnificent proponent of all of this stuff. We do spend a lot of time getting traffic and understanding our initial market's needs, and during, when we sell people and when we provide them their service, we don't think quite as much as that. Some good businesses do, but I tell you, something that we all leave a lot to be desired on is in the after unit. In other words, after you've done the service, after you've serviced their high-end car and done all of that, how can you be of service with them? And most importantly, how can they help you? And having some sort of referral approach so that people are, because car owners and I'm assuming the high-end car, they see each other, they acknowledge each other. The Tesla owners, classic, right? They've got clubs, they've got groups, they've got all these sorts of things, and they're probably a bit more engaged than the market that you're in. You need to understand who these people are and get them, because often they don't want money for referrals, because that almost feels a little bit dirty in this particular case. But when they're talking cars, you want them to say, oh, you've got to get your car serviced by Reed. He's sensational. He's the guy who makes it. And you want to mention to people, you want to put it in their head that your business grows and you're able to better serve them by getting clients just like them. So getting them involved in your business that way, because the type of client that I'm imagining in my head that you're dealing with, that type of thing where they almost feel like they're a bit of a patron, to use a word we talked about previously, patronage, back in the days of the founding fathers and Hamilton or the Renaissance, artists and people who were creative and people who they survived based on patrons. High end, working on high end cars, high end anything, is often about patronage, and you want to make them feel special. So if they're not interested in the mechanics of the car themselves, it's often the experience around. How can you make the experience better? Can you pick them up? What about hire vehicles? What about getting them Ubers to and from so they don't have to worry about dropping your car off? How can you make the experience better? Okay, and because these high-end clients are awesome, because often, what you can charge for the service is you can increase significantly. Just by providing a latte and an Uber lift could be way, way better. And you start doing that, people are going to start talking about you, and that's the best referral. So that's my from the hip suggestion read for you about that. Hopefully that's useful. Okay, going round the globe here. Kieran from London. Okay, so Kieran asks, thank you for your awesome training and value you're giving out. When starting a project or business, I'm someone who likes to think with the end in mind, as Stephen Covey would say. Since you've had amazing success at selling online businesses, what are the main things you need to implement in a niche-style online business to make it attractive to a potential buyer if one day you decided to sell it? Okay, so this question's going in a slightly different direction to where I thought it was heading. So here, Kieran is talking about, okay, I want to create a business, but I want to build it as an asset. I want to build it as something that potentially I can sell. Okay, so that's the question, but let's listen a bit further along, because Kieran identifies something that can be a real issue in information publishing style businesses. I'm asking because a lot of times this business will be personality based. There's the issue. And I'm wondering how to gain the benefits of adding my own personality in the business, and at the same time, the business not solely relying on me, my personality, potentially making it harder to sell. I would love your thoughts on this. Thank you. Okay, so first hot take is, just focus on building a great business. Ultimately a business will sell if you're seeing growth, and it's set up as a system to make it the easier you can make it for people to step into that business, the bit higher the multiple that you're going to get for that business. And you quite rightly identify, if the business is totally associated around you, you're going to find a really hard time of selling it. So what do you do? Okay, I think, when I think about people who are doing this really well, I think about a guy like Nathan Chan at Founder Magazine, doing a brilliant job with building a brand around Founder, not around Nathan Chan, around his magazine Founder. And he's got the Founder Club, and he's got a whole, sort of market around that. Now, he's still involved. His personality is still reflected in that. But you could easily see that business setting up, and having sort of seen it from the inside, somebody could go in and buy that, and they would have an incredibly valuable asset which they could continue to make money with, because the products aren't related around, Nathan consulting directly or any of those sorts of things. So that to me is, sort of one approach. So you start to, you just start from the group, and you use the group. Another way to do it, of course, is using pseudonyms. Many companies over time, there was a car insurance company here in Australia, and their mascot's the wrong word, their customer service person, their face of the company was called Amy. The company was called Amy. The person was called Amy. And whenever you dialed them up, you would get Amy on the phone. Now, of course, Amy was not just one person. They were dozens of people. So in that case, a pseudonym was fantastic, because the pseudonym became the face of the company, not an individual person that could leave. You're seeing a lot with traditional publishers and newspapers. It's a real double-edged sword, because often you're seeing the journalists who are actually building their own name and their own profile, going off and doing their own thing, and ultimately being able to be more successful because they've got much lower overheads and all those sorts of things. So fundamentally, don't stress so much about you and your role in it, because if you set up a good business to run, guess what? You've created a good business to sell. So by setting up processes so you're not involved. I love. I was speaking at James Shremko's conference earlier in the year, and he did a session on how he runs his entire business now through his mobile phone. He uses Slack. And basically, if the process can't be done on the mobile phone, he reworks the process until it can be done on the mobile phone. So all he needs is his phone and Slack, and he can run his entire organization. And I thought, wow, what a great, end vision. Yeah, that's, you may not be there yet, but what a great sort of feel for that. And think about that. If you wanted to sell a business like that, that's going to be a hell of a lot easier to sell, because you're selling a lifestyle. You created something which enables you to run it from a phone, which is brilliant, right? So you need to think about that. Those are way more important. The business processes that you're doing, how are they replicable? How are they, are you creating a, sort of your own knowledge base of how you bring on somebody? Are you using things like Scrum, Agile, Kanban, which makes it much easier for somebody to come in and take over the business so that you're not reliant? Because far more than the personality, I think, is even more important is if that person is so reliant in the management that everything goes through them, so when they leave, it all falls apart. So that's my advice to you. Make it simple, make it easy, and do it that way. I think is going to be a hell of a lot better way to do things. Okay. Danny asks, hi Ed, any tips on writing better benefits for my sale video? Oh, I've got a fantastic one for you here, and that is, guess what? Pains, gains, and jobs to be done. Ultimately, a benefit, what is a benefit? A benefit is a pain reliever, or it's a gain creator. So if you understand your market's pains, then a benefit of your product is guess what? A pain reliever. It relieves the pain of your market. Same with gains. It's a gain creator. So a benefit shows a person how to get from point A to better point B. So the more you understand your market from a pains, gains, and jobs to be done point of view, the easier you will find it to talk about benefits in a sales video. And that, to me, is absolutely key. Ultimately, if we project down the future of your business, you want to see yourself as like a publisher, as somebody who's setting the vision for the business. And one of your biggest value adds that you can do is just really being in touch with the market and understanding what pains, gains, and jobs to be done are. It's one of the reasons I do this weekly show now, because people are sending in their questions in their email, and we can see these questions are about pains, gains, and jobs to be done. So I can feel and understand what's going on in the marketplace, and hopefully create products and services and answer questions, serve the tribe, so I can build the tribe, right? That's fundamentally what you need to do in any market. So that, to me, is a big part of this process. So that would be that's absolutely my biggest number one tip. And by the way, pains, gains, and jobs to be done. Where do you find out about that? A fantastic intro is our good old challenge, challenge.co. We talk all about that in the first couple of modules of the challenge, which is available right now. It's completely and utterly free, and it'll show you how to research your market and understand pains, gains, and jobs to be done. So check out the challenge because it's a fantastic way of you being able to get those pains, gains, and jobs to be done, because then it makes writing sales letters, creating content, building products, it makes everything easier. Next one. Lucy says, hi Ed, with everything that needs to be done, how do you avoid burnout? That is easy. Easy for me to say. That Kanban board is everything. And let me tell you the principle in specific that prevents burnout. Because burnout is a real interesting concept. Because what a lot of people confuse burnout for is when actually they've got a whole bunch of stuff that hasn't been done, and burnout can often be confused with overwhelm. So burnout, as I define it, is where people are just working like a dog and literally on target all the time, and they're just consistently you see this with social media gurus. They're on social media doing all their stuff, and actually professional YouTubers too. And then all of a sudden they'll hit a wall and they'll literally burn out, and they have to take a month off, or they have to take a couple of months, or worse, they flame out completely, right? That to me is what I call burnout. So that, to answer your specific question, the answer is pacing. You've got to pace yourself. And this is where this Kanban approach is so awesome. Because the principle, there are only two principles to a Kanban board. It has to be visible. Can't be a computer program. Can't be something where it's hidden. It has to be in your face. That's principle one. Principle two is you have to limit the WIP. What's the WIP? It's called the work in progress. Now, this is a manufacturing term from car manufacturing, Toyota to be specific, who developed all this stuff. And interesting little tangent side note, everybody was losing their minds over Elon Musk talking about how, with delays to his cars, that that is a product of the slowest or unluckiest supplier. And he's actually demonstrated, and this, sorry Elon, has been going on for decades with good old Toyota. And indeed, Toyota's founder, Aoshi, he would sleep on the factory line. He didn't have an office. He would go from process to process to look for inefficiencies. And that is a key part of this. And that's how Kanban was developed, because he figured this out. And it's interesting to see Elon Musk is doing exactly the same thing with Tesla. But it's a new concept for entrepreneurs. Okay. Anyway, little side note and digression. So, in avoiding burnout, the second rule of Kanban is to limit the WIP. In other words, the bottleneck, and guess what? Spoiler alert, the bottleneck is you. The key to managing a great business is to ensure that the amount of work that the bottleneck can handle equals the output of the bottleneck. Okay, so what that means is you're only capable of doing a certain amount. And for so many of you watching me, you've got 9-to-5 gigs, you've got day jobs and stuff like that. So a lot of you are putting together all of this stuff on the side, and that's cool and that's sweet. I love that. But it's even more important you understand what your capacity is. So by visualizing this process, I know that I will get anywhere between 7 and 15 tickets done. Post-it notes is a ticket during a week. And indeed, I limit the amount of stuff that I'm going to do at the start of the week. So you can see there I've got 5, I think. 4. I've got 4. I did because it's Monday here in Australia, so I do my board and assess it every Monday morning. So I've limited. There's a bunch of stuff in my option column. There's probably 24 tickets in my options column. But the reality is, given I look at my week, and I've got a good week from a work perspective, not so many appointments, got a lot of time, and we've got some good projects that John and I are working on. So, I'm going to get quite a few tickets done. But even though I've done that, I've limited the amount that I put in my ready column, because what I've done is I've made a cast iron promise to myself that I'm going to get those tickets done. Okay, that's the intention. Now, do I get them done all the time? No, I don't. I'm human. And now here's the thing, down at the bottom of that, and I actually haven't moved a ticket in there yet. And why haven't I moved a ticket into the day column? Because my number one focus for today is you guys, right? Doing this broadcast, preparing for it, getting it all done. By the time I'm finished, I'm knackered. I can hardly speak. My voice is stuffed up. If you do a couple of hours, an hour and a half of broadcasting, that's enough. Plus, I know I've got to do a video intro. Well, I actually did a video intro for John. So that's why I haven't got a ticket in there. I know what my capacity is because I've been tracking my capacity. What happens with a lot of people is that they don't visualize so they use to-do lists and stuff. So what happens when you tick off a task in a to-do list? Poof, it's disappeared. It's gone. So you've got no way of understanding what your capacity is. If you're People think of tasks as checklists, whereas it's really like it's a stream or a river. You need to keep it flowing constantly. The way you avoid burnout, what a long way to answer this question, but hopefully you guys are finding this useful, is to keep the stream flowing. Know your capacity. Don't have a dam bursting upriver and having a huge flash flood coming towards you. Don't have that. Limit the amount of work that's coming through to you so you can see progress. And this is the weird thing, right? This is the weird thing that quite often when I'm dealing with private clients, one of my first edicts is for them to work less. They're telling me they're working 40, 50, 60, more like 50, 60, 70 hours a week. It's insane. You're just not productive. You may be in front of the computer that long. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're Mr. Productivity Pants, right? You are not effective for 40 hours plus a week. There's science behind this, right? There's a bunch of science behind it. And, for most, again, if you're in your 20s and you've got no commitments, no family and stuff, go for your life. Smack your head against the wall. I did. Everybody does. Build something. Go for it. But the people I'm talking to are people who typically have commitments. They've got mortgages, kids, stuff that they have to do. And that has to be managed. And burnout and overwhelm, which is, I think it's related kissing cousin, those things happen because you aren't visualizing your flow. As I say, I can't tell you how, important that is. And that is how you solve overwhelm, because you limit your capacity because you've tracked it visually. Because if a person like me's try to track it using a phone or some sort of cool program, we forget to open the phone, right? It's true. If I'm speaking to you, it's true. You love buying, in the 80s, you were buying daytimers and filofaxes, and you were getting all the cool tabs, and you were buying all the cool stuff. You set it up beautifully, and you never used it properly. Since 2007, you've got all these awesome to-do apps on your phone, and you set them up lovingly, and you don't use them. It's me, right? And that's the thing that makes us entrepreneurs. For not all of us, there's about 5% of entrepreneurs who are completely the opposite, who are super duper organized and do use their to-do lists and day planners and stuff like that. Bless you if you're one of those people. But that's not everybody. So anyway, there you have it. That's the thing. So to avoid OPA, that's what I do. Okay, Joe asks, is using CPA, which stands for cost per action offers, a viable income stream? If so, how to implement? So this is where effectively people are paying you for leads, or indeed they're paying you for specific things. So they don't want the lead. Well, just sending people to the page, you won't get paid. But if they lodge their details into the page, you'll get paid. And this can be very lucrative, right? This can be something that is a lucrative stream. If you can unlock, if you can basically pay less for your traffic than you're getting paid from CPA, it can be a great business. However, saying that, Joe, I'll be blunt. I don't think for the majority of people watching this, I don't want to offend people, but it's not a real business. It's an arbitrage play. And hey, some people, hedge fund managers, a lot of people get wealthy on arbitrage plays. And if you've got that particular mindset, awesome. I'm of the school, I'm a bit more traditional, that you need to build an audience and provide products and services that people love. Okay, and you deliver that to them. If you're getting, and we've all seen these CPA offers, when you've signed up for something, I'm trying to think of an example. And they'll say, hey, by the way, you might be interested in these offers from our partners. And you go cycle, and I've tried a couple of these, and they seem to go on forever. If you keep clicking, I'll see another offer, I'll see another. That's cost. That's one example of cost per action. I just think my audience and my audience's attention is so precious that sending them off to win a free iPhone or, get a complimentary blah, blah, I just don't think it's serving them. Now, there may be a cost per action where it's you are serving them and it's it's super addressing a pain they have or helping them get somewhere where they want to go. Then that might be a good thing. I haven't come across much of that in my neck of the woods, but maybe in your neck of the woods, maybe that's okay. But that's where we're at. So my suggestion to you is focus on building your list, serving your tribe. Your tribe will tell you what they need by complaining about stuff that sucks, that they don't like. People are very happy to complain in all sorts of subjects and hobbies. Don't worry about that. Or where they want to get to. And indeed, they'll also say, I'm having trouble doing this. Can somebody please tell me how to do that? AKA, jobs to be done. Understand that about your market and you'll have a never-ending stream of products and services that you can create for people. All right. Real Giroux says, I will go to Filipina in the fall to get help to build a couple of sites. How long to build a site and get it running for sale? Look, creating a website today is as easy as signing up to Squarespace, and you can have a beautiful looking website. You can have a great, we built our own platform that we use so that we can literally spin up a whole new website, a membership community, opt-in pages, all the things that we need literally in a morning, right? So we have a fabulous piece of software that we use to set up. That's not the issue. The thing, why do people want to buy a website? They want to buy it because it's making money, right? So it's a return on investment, or it's getting a lot of traffic and they can monetize. They know how to monetize that traffic. That's the other way of doing it. So you need to focus, I think, on, how is this, is it getting traffic and is it growing, or is it making money and growing? That's how you sell a website. And the only ways you're going to achieve those first two things is addressing the pains, gains, and jobs to be done of your market. Have I said pains, gains, and jobs to be done enough today? I don't think I have. Pains, gains, and jobs to be done. It really is the key to everything. It's such a simple, smart way of thinking about things because it allows you to put you in perspective and it gives you focus. I'm working with a bunch of people with Achiever in this semester's Achiever formula at the moment. And, I'm just, a lot of people say, I'm getting overwhelmed. I'm spending so much time researching. It shouldn't be like that. You should be setting a timer for 30 minutes and say, okay, I'm going to go and spend 30 minutes in this forum and I'm going to look for every complaint. I'm going to write every time somebody complains. I'm going to jot down what the nature of the complaint is. When somebody says, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that, I'm going to write that down because that's a potential gain. And when somebody says, I don't understand how to do this, I'm going to write that down as the jobs to be done. Done. That will give you more blog posts, more podcast topics, more YouTube channel stuff, more products and service creation than you can possibly chuck a stick at. You've got to do it with some structure. You've got to give yourself some boundaries. Creativity occurs when there's constraints. When you have no constraints, when you don't give your research a boundary, you'll end up effectively doing nothing. It's just the way it works. So hopefully I've helped you there. I'm not sure I have. Marilyn says, hi Ed, hope things are going well and you're well. Thank you very much. I appreciate your experience and support. Oh, thank you, Marilyn. Really appreciate that. It's lovely to hear. Helen says, what other ways to increase sales? How can SEO be added in for more customers for iTunes Magazine? Okay, before I read the magazine part of iTunes, which is effectively an app, I was going to be worried for a second because SEO for offense. What do I mean by that? Search engine optimization, being able to use methods and strategies to get yourself to a top of a search engine, hence getting traffic. That's gone, right? It's gone. And anybody who tells you otherwise, I think they're full of poo. Okay? Now, this is controversial. There'll be a bunch of people who will just say flat out, Ed, you don't know what you're talking about. Well, I'm sorry, but I know some of the smartest search engine doesn't mean that search engine optimization is stupid. It's actually a very, very vital science and it's really, really important, but it's more defensive SEO. It's making sure your pages are set up and make sure your tags are right, your descriptions are right, all of those sorts of things. So to give yourself the best possible chance of being discovered and surfaced by a particular search engine. Doesn't matter whether it's a website or it's an app or any of those sorts of things. There are, however, in the App Store, there are absolutely a whole bunch of things that you can be doing which enable you to actually get a better ranking in the App Store. And the fundamental thing, I think, is iTunes keywords. So iTunes keywords are the keywords that you add to your app. You've got 100 characters, effectively, and they are crucial in putting those together. So I would investigate those as a great way of doing that, because natural traffic right now in this day and age is it's amazing on the App Store. It really does a fantastic job. So that is what I would do, Helen. That would be the one place I would have a look. Oh, I'm being passed look at this. Oh, Hannah. Look at that. What's in it?
It's chicken and vegetable pie from Aldi.
Chicken and vegetable pie from Aldi. Check it out. All right, we'll put that there. Thanks, hon. See you later. So there we are. We're getting down towards the last questions, so that's good. That's good. I love speaking to you guys. It's awesome. Okay, Paul says, running so late on the course. Ironically, the weather... Paul, maybe you're referring to Achiever Formula? That's the current semester we're in. Ironically, the weather in Sydney, super storm cell over the weekend, was perfect to test my product that I've invented to get some performance stats. Trouble is that the project is soaking up a lot of my time, feeling very guilty. Paul, Kanban. Right? You've got to understand the flow and how you're working. Because here's the thing. When I actually interrogate people, and if I had the chance to interrogate Paul about what they're doing on their business and what they're spending their time on doing, oftentimes you've actually done a bit. But here's the deal. There is an effect, and there's two... it's called the Zeigarnik effect. And there's two things about the Zeigarnik effect. There's one that a lot of you will have heard about, and there's one that is not so understood about the Zeigarnik effect. So what's the Zeigarnik effect, Ed? The Zeigarnik effect is this, that everything that you are worrying about or thinking about or even slightly considering that you haven't got out of your head is consuming, I can never pronounce the word, caloric. It's consuming energy in your brain, literal energy, right? Even if it's not conscious, unconsciously, your brain has to keep track of all of these things that you're trying to do. So the first thing that your brain does, if you complete a task and there's no associated emotional thing, in other words, you're not super elated, which is the rare part, or super pissed at yourself, which you do remember very well, then other than that, your brain flushes it from your memory and you can't remember, right? Because your brain needs the energy. It's the brain you can go run for 3 hours straight and your brain consumes more energy in a day than you running for 3 hours, right? It's an enormous energy consumer. It's the number one energy consumer in your body, right? So it needs to conserve that energy at all costs. It's all science. You can look all this up. So problem one is that you forget, as I say, tasks that don't have an emotional energy attached to it. In other words, you were super happy or super disgusted or even slightly disgusted. You forget about it. You flush it from your system. Let me give you a real world example of where you may have come across this. I don't know if you've ever had to fill out expense reports. Now, if you're like me, 65% of you are, you may collate all the receipts and you'll save them all after a 2-week trip and you'll get back and you'll sit down to do your expense report. Yes, this is how I do it. I know. It's sad, right? And you'll look at it and you'll go, what was that? I have no idea what that receipt was. I collected it. It must be important, but I can't remember because there was nothing associated. Your brain has to efficiently dump and flush the memory. So that's what happens. That's the first part. But the second part, and this is the key issue for entrepreneurs, the absolute key, if you're not visually... So, solution to that, by the way, you can free up an enormous amount of energy by just having a visual representation. It has to be visual. It has to be in your face. Because every morning I walk into my office and bam, the first thing I see as I walk through the door is that board and everything that's on it. And my brain subconsciously goes, oh, phew, it's keeping track of all of this stuff. I don't have to. I can think about more creative endeavors. I can think about more flow. I can think about more things to be doing. This is one of the virtues of a Kanban board, some sort of visual tracking process. However, far more importantly, is that you can actually then, at the end of the week, of course, it's the start of the week, so you can see no tickets up there at the moment. But before, when I pulled down my tickets before, I think I did 8 last week. And by the way, on Thursday, I'd done none. There was a lot of stuff that was percolating during the week, which came home to roost on Friday. You can actually start to see what your capacity is, and you can actually start to see the flow of things that are going through. So if you're feeling frustrated, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling guilty about not getting enough stuff done, you need to start doing a Kanban board, right? It's the most vital, most crucial thing you can possibly do. And let me tell you, I've had the chance now to implement this with hundreds of people, and for entrepreneurs in particular, it is absolutely phenomenal. Like, it just changes the game, because so many entrepreneurs have done so many productivity courses and bought so many, gone to courses, bought stuff, bought books. This is the thing that sticks. It just is incredible. Let's have a look. Tina says, hi Ed, and we're almost at our last question for today. We've got one more after this. So Tina from Queensland, love your broadcasts. I understand content creation and marketing and love doing video marketing for clients, but I'm stumped with my own project. I've been invited to be a guest artist at a week-long art event on Norfolk Island in October with folks flying from Brisbane, and I'm trying to come up with the best technique to get potential customers to sign up and pay. I've way too many ideas but need to focus. Can you recommend a strategy? Any tips will be much appreciated. Many thanks in advance. All right, Tina. Great. Thank you for the question. It's an awesome question. It sounds awesome. Norfolk Island's a brilliant place. Although I think they're planning on rioting because we're planning on taxing them after all these years. But anywho, I digress. For those of you who don't know, Norfolk Island was, if you Mutiny on the Bounty, very famous history. It was populated by the people who did the Mutiny on the Bounty. But I digress. Anyway, question, Tina. Think about, okay, what you're doing in your residency, but again, who are the people that are coming? Who are the people that you want to sign up? And guess what I'm going to tell you? Ask yourself, what are their pains, gains, and jobs to be done? And I don't know if you've downloaded the challenge, Tina, but we actually have this exercise in the challenge where you set a timer for a couple of minutes and you just write, boom, just straight stream of consciousness, what people's pains are, what people's gains are, what people's jobs to be done are. And I do them on Post-it notes, and then I order the Post-it notes. And so by understanding their pains in particular, it gives you an idea of the types of things, if you can solve any one of those pains, if you can provide a pain reliever for any one of those pains, boom, you're in the socket. Then people are going to think about, getting people to, what are you after? You want people, customers to sign up and pay. What are the pain relievers? What are the gain creators that your product, I'll say product, it might be a service too, but how is that helping the potential customers' pains, gains, and jobs to be done? You match those together and you are well on your way. And the best thing about this process is it's not salesy, right? It's not super salesy. So you're able to, do and, serve people so much better because you are absolutely focused on what they can do. So that would be my advice, is think through that. And again, if you want a little bit of a help with this, you can download the first couple of modules on the challenge, and we talk a bit about pains, gains, and jobs to be done. It really is core to everything that we do, because it's just a brilliant way of understanding your marketplace and particular segments of your marketplace too, right? Because, if you use golf as opposed to people with putting problems, you get very different answers to that same question. Okay, Vivian says, "Hi Ed, I find myself gravitating towards e-commerce even though I have a few niches I'd love to do." Okay, few niches, yellow flag. E-commerce always turns up. Should I do both? Because eventually I want to have a few niches going anyways. Vivian. Okay, Vivian. A few niches. Look, I got to tell you, in this day, in the old days, yeah, you could have plenty of niches. For goodness sake, I had, 30 odd sites going at one point selling ebooks of different things. I'm not sure you can do that these days. Serving a particular market and really serving and understanding that market, there's more than enough business for you to just focus on that. And then what I would argue to you is e-commerce is just a thing, right? It's a delivery mechanism, that there is stuff that people want to buy in your market that you can create for them, that you can sell to them. That is ultimately the thing. It's typically e-commerce refers to physical products that you can sell. And there's so many awesome ways to do that now. And even things like crowdfunding and Kickstarter. So people are actually paying you before you even have the thing created on the concept. All of these sorts of things are possibilities. But to me, Vivian, that is a means to an end, okay? It's at the end of the process, because understanding how you serve that market first and how you build the list in that market is way more super crucial than deciding whether you're going to serve e-commerce. Because if they want to buy products in that marketplace, you'll find that out through your research because you understand what their pains are, and you'll be able to deliver a much better product because you understand what the pains, gains, and jobs to be done are in that market. So it's not necessarily a thing of saying, oh, should I do digital publishing or should I do e-com? That's cart before the horse. What you should be thinking is, I want to serve the golf market, or I want to serve people who are playing tennis, or I want to create a better raincoat for people who are in stormy and rainy weather, or I want to create a cloak to protect people from the Zika virus when they go to the Olympics in Brazil. That's where you've got to start. You've got to start with a market and how I can serve that market, and then it'll become a natural consequence. You don't have to G yourself up for e-commerce. It's so easy to set that stuff up with Stripe and Square and Braintree, all that. Starting, you can use Amazon, you can use third-party drop shipping. All of that stuff is just beautiful, right? After it, so think about market first, and then it'll become obvious if you need to serve that market through e-commerce or information products or both, maybe. Who knows? But your market will tell you, and you let them tell you, rather than, because what's the alternative? You make a call, and it happens to be the wrong call. By the way, this happens a majority of the time with people. They think, okay, I want to do golfing, I want to create a new putter. And they go and create a new putter and they find that there's no market for it. Whereas if they'd built a mailing list for people who are studying putting and have putting problems, they could have gone to that market and said, hey, look, we're looking at doing this. Can I get your feedback? Involvement breeds commitment. Then they could have done a Kickstarter for the putter without spending any money, but create a prototype and video and do all that sort of stuff. And then people, if the Kickstarter got funded, fantastic. There's a market there for it. See, in this day and age, we don't have to take risks. We don't have to invest massive amounts of time before we can start to decide whether to help serve our market. And ultimately, we can only be right or wrong in hindsight. We never know whether something's going to work or not until we try it. So doesn't it make sense to test fast, to test cheap, and to test safe? And you can do that now in this day and age. It's awesome. Okay, one bonus question here from Leonie, who got it just in before the bell. As a dog trainer, had intended making my product some videos on dog training with Achiever Formula. But researching, I noticed there is a trainer who has over 200 excellent free videos online, so I wonder if this is going to work for me. Though I do think people often do not value free things, but they are good. My intention was to start building a list with one I could make to start, as I don't have a product yet. How many real estate agents are there now? I'm making some assumptions. I'm assuming you live in a decent sized town. How many real estate agents are there? How many doctors are there? How many pharmacists are there? How many car dealerships are there? Do you notice ever that car dealerships actually are all in the same part of town together? That doesn't make sense. If there's only enough room for one car dealership, surely you'd want to keep your car dealership well away from the others because they're the competition. You don't want to let anybody know about that. Yet car dealerships are all in the same part of town. There are many, many real estate agents, right? This is not the issue. There's always, dog training is one of the perennial fabulous markets, right? There's plenty of people who are prepared to spend plenty of money. You've got to start to think about, well, how can I address people's pains, gains, and jobs to be done in a unique way? But before you even think about that, because that will come down the track, you need to, as you quite rightly identified, you need to build a list first. Right? And starting to build an audience is fantastic. Because here's the other thing about free content, right? Yeah, people can discover, pretty much anything that you want to learn is available for free somewhere on the internet. But you know what people don't have is time. And I'd much rather pay somebody, $90 for something that's brilliantly curated that helps me exactly to do and achieve what I want to achieve than having to spend days and days trying to research and find stuff in the first place. I don't have that time. So I'd prefer to use money to trade for that time. And that, honestly, is the information. Thank goodness that exists, because that's my whole business in a nutshell. That is information marketing. That is, being an influencer, an expert in your area. That is very much a part of all of that. All right, so with that, that's our questions for today. Thank you so much for being part of the Challenge Live experience, or if you're watching the replay, thank you for watching the replay. And hey, tell your friends. And remember, the challenge is available at all times. And by the way, and I just should mention this, is that if you think of a question during the week but you can't make the broadcast for some reason, then feel free. You can go at any time to live.eddale.co and you can drop in a question at any time of the week and pop it in there, and I'll do my best to answer it on the next broadcast. So happy to do that, and love to hear from you, and have a great week wherever you happen to be. So thanks to JB for getting my back and having all this stuff sorted out, and stay tuned for some cool, we've hopefully got a couple of apps for you to download which will make this experience really awesome. So stay tuned for that as well. So with that, thanks very much. Have a great weekend. I am going to get into my Aldi special chicken and vegetable pie here, and have a great day. See you soon. Now, of course, as always, I can never figure out how to get this stream. All right, here we are. Bye.